Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Hope you're well. As you know, the last couple of days, I've been putting out some videos documenting the troubles that we're having with our local council when it comes to taxi drivers, being a taxi driver in this local area. What they're proposing is to release a new policy to bring them in line with other areas. It's all about regionalisation and all the rest of it at the end of the day, but that's another subject for another time. One of the main primary sticking points in this policy is the fact that they want to suddenly enforce an age restriction on the cars that are driving around this area. And it's not only the age restriction, it's the age that it is, how soon they want it to be in place, and the lack of any incentives to try and assist drivers from making the transition from point A to point B. Now, many drivers, myself included, will plan the financial situation behind the running of and the replacement of their vehicles. Myself, I always look to buy something that I know will run for at least 5 years. Others, they rent their vehicles because they simply can't afford to buy one. And many of the rental vehicles around this area, of course, will be out the window under this new system. Now, as the title of this video entails, I'm in the paper. I was communicating with the editor of one of the local papers yesterday, and she released it this morning. And what I wanted to do was share the article with you so you know exactly where we are and exactly what's going on. So without further ado, let's have a look. Now, the actual paper is an online paper called the Isle of Thanet News, and pretty good. The editor of this is a lady called Kathy, who's always been very helpful. So let's have a look, and it covers Ramsgate, Margate, Broadstairs and the villages. So private hire driver says new vehicle age restrictions rule for Thanet will wipe out business and result in cabbies quitting. That's quite a powerful headline there. And you can see me. Kathy actually said to me she wanted a couple of pictures of me. She had one, but a really old one. And I looked rather grumpy in the ones I sent over, and rightly so. Anyway, let's continue. So, vehicle age restrictions in Thanet Council's new Hackney carriage and private hire policy will result in aisle drivers quitting, sky-high fares for customers and fewer cabs on the road, says one business boss. Andy Gifford, that's me, who runs Andy's airport cars, says the vehicle age policy will wipe out his business, and he is willing to take the case to judicial review if necessary. I have looked into this. It is viable, and I am prepared to get the ball rolling if necessary. I can't put it any plainer than that. The restriction is contained in a new policy for drivers and operators in Thanet, which is expected to receive approval at full council this month and be implemented early next year. Now, you can see a picture there. This was a demonstration of some of the local guys that came out and said, you know, this policy is ill thought through, ill-advised, and it's going to lead to mass job losses. A number of changes have been made to the policy following consultation earlier this year, where drivers protested outside the council offices. Amendments included the ditching of tailored shorts dress code, but the vehicle age restriction has proved to be a sticking point. Yeah, they wanted to tell us what we were supposed to wear while we were doing the job. And most of those guys in that picture there look smart enough, and comfortable enough for driving a cab over a great many miles. The proposal is for new licence applications, the vehicle must not be older than 7 years old. This is extended from the 5 years originally proposed. So they were going to be even more restrictive when they first came out with this. They said 5 years, and now they're saying 7. Now, the main problem is it's not so much the 7. It's the, well, in a way it is, because the cost effectiveness of purchasing a vehicle against the fares and the actual money you make here, the two don't marry up. And also the transition period that they're offering existing drivers, again, doesn't marry up. There's no time. And for a business like mine that relies on minibuses, some of the newer minibuses, which you'd have to get to fall in line, just don't cut the mustard. It doesn't work at all. And I have a very strong suspicion that an impact assessment hasn't been carried out, but more on that later. Petrol or diesel vehicles, maximum age 10 years, then they can no longer be used. So when you present a new vehicle, it has to be 7 years old or younger, and then they will only allow it to be licensed up to 10 years. So logically, really, you've got to be looking at a 5-year-old vehicle and run it for 5 years. That would be my advice. Hybrid vehicles, they'll only let them go to 12 years. So again, 7 years at first license and then 12 years after that. Electric vehicles, no age limit, and application fees for EVs have been waived for the period of this policy. So you can see where they're going. They want everything electric in this area. For someone like me that's never in the area, it ain't good. Unlimited age for fully adapted wheelchair vehicles. Again, that's something that we have suffered with over time in this area. I had a wheelchair vehicle when I first started, but I ended up transitioning into the airports. All vehicles must meet Euro 6 emission standard or equivalent. So, in other words, ULEZ compliant. So this is it. A 2-year transition period is proposed to assist with the financial implications this will have on existing drivers. Well, that's simply not good enough. I need probably 4 years minimum. And there's many drivers out there, no matter how big a transition period you throw at it, it simply won't be good enough because of, the fact they either don't own a car or they're in a situation where they couldn't afford to buy one that's compliant so quickly. I did a video earlier on, I think it was yesterday actually, where I showed you a couple of examples of the cost of cars, and it's not viable. Thanet Council says the aim of the policy is twofold: vehicle safety and the reduction of pollution through Euro 6 emission standards. Well, vehicle safety, that's irrelevant because you can have a 20-year-old car that's still safe. All of the cabs in this area have to have 3 MOTs a year. They have to have the normal MOT that comes with a car anyway. And then they have to have 2 MOTs run by the council. So that is an irrelevance. What the taxi operators need to do to ensure that things are clean and tidy and everything else, they need to do more inspections of their vehicles and put a policy in place to say, while you were doing work for me, your vehicle will meet these standards. I have it. All of my drivers have a driver's agreement with it. So what's the problem? And Euro 6 emission standards, this is the same old argument over whether the environmental situation is as bad as it could be. Dad of 2 said, I am a Thanet private hire driver of 15 years. Dad of 2, Andy, says, I am a Thanet private hire driver of 15 years and I run one of the local airport transfer firms. The council's new vehicle age policy is about to wipe out the business I built from nothing. My 11-year-old Ford Tornado minibus is spotless, triple MOT'd every year, and in constant demand for airport runs, family groups, and tourist work. Yet within the next 24 months, it will be illegal to license. Now, I think one of the very important things to point out there is I not only run it myself, I have 5 other drivers that do my work as well, all of which will be in this situation. Sorry, morning coffee. So it has quite the impact. And one of the reasons I went for, well, twofold reason I went for the age minibus I did. Number one is obviously it was cheaper. 13 grand I paid for that minibus. And by the time I had all the paintwork done and everything else, you might as well say 16 grand. If you look at an equivalent, you're looking at about 30,000 for a new one. So it more than doubles the investment. and the time they give you is just unacceptable. Really, really and truthfully unacceptable. And I have other drivers that work for me that are in a similar situation. The other reason I went for the age I did is because of the mechanical side of it. The older Tornios have a drive chain, and the newer ones have a wet belt where it's like a cam belt, but it goes through oil. And the problem with those is that they wear out too quickly, and you end up in a situation with reliability issues and possibly higher maintenance. So that was the justification for me doing what I did. I mean, I got 380,000 miles out of my old one, so they're pretty solid. A replacement that meets the new rules will cost me £30,000 to £45,000. That's a sticking point. It's a business killer. Money I simply cannot find on Thanet's rock bottom fares. I think that if Thanet Council are going to do this, they have to have either a longer transition period, or they have to have what you call grandfathering rights, which means that anybody that's on at the moment is allowed to continue all the while their vehicles are going. But when they go, when they need replacing, they have to be replaced with something else. There are other councils, two at least that I know of, that have done that quite successfully, and they still meet their environmental targets. I'm not alone. Up to half of the district drivers will be forced to hand their badges back because they can't afford the same massive bill either. The result will be far fewer cabs on the road, much longer waits, sky-high fares, and many residents and visitors jumping back into their own cars, making air quality worse, not better. What will happen? Drivers will leave. People say Uber to the rescue, but what people don't realise is Uber source their drivers from a local stock, and that local stock is licensed by the same council that want to put all of these things in place. So you're on a fool's errand. Fares will have to increase to finance the new vehicles. That's another thing. And when people say, oh, sod this, I'm going to drive, then the environmental question becomes null and void, doesn't it? Nobody has thought this through. I don't think it's really Thanet Council alone. I think it's all of them. Despite clear warnings at the scrutiny meeting, where one councillor openly agreed with us, the council is ploughing ahead with no proper impact assessment and almost no transition time or grandfathering for existing cars. This isn't an environmental policy. It's economic eviction for hundreds of local drivers and a devastating blow to Thanet's tourism and everyday transport. I've lodged a formal legal objection and we'll take this to judicial review if necessary. There's a couple of other things going on behind the scenes as well, which I'll reveal in due time. My livelihood after 15 years of serving this community, losing my livelihood of 15 years of serving this community is simply wrong. The issue was discussed last month at a council scrutiny meeting. Now that's the one I spoke at, and that's where you have that video, which I put out. There was another guy called Andrew McMillan, spoke there as well. Now this guy, Councillor John Davis, he is the only one in 2 meetings that I'm aware of, possibly more, that stuck up for the trade. Now, John actually turned around and said many years ago he was a cab driver himself, and he agrees with me. At the end of the day, if they're licensed and they've been checked and they've been visualed, what's the problem? And you can see the quote there. He welcomed controls, but thought the age restriction was onerous. And I thank John online. He's the only one that stuck up for us. He added, we're in a situation where vehicles are MOT twice a year. So if they pass the emissions and running conditions, they're fine and legal. He said the rule would put pressure on the welfare of drivers. Absolutely right. Because one thing as well, most drivers have to work at least 60 hours a week already. And you have the bosses, you have the operators going around saying, oh, you can earn £1,500 a week. You never. But what they're not equating is the losses for that £1,500 a week. Insurance, fuel, circuit fee, repairs, problems with customers if they bath in the car or whatever else. There's all sorts of things you don't consider. So that £1,500 a week very quickly evaporates. Car loans, car rental, I could go on. So that's 60 hours a week. Yeah. So it could push up fares, make the service less accessible to the public, adding that this would potentially cost jobs and leave us with a shortage of drivers because they can't get the finance and arrangements to run these cars. Absolutely. Cabinet member, Councillor Heather Keane, I'm assuming that's Heather in the picture, said Thanet was already an outlier with age restrictions in neighbouring authorities being much stricter, such as Canterbury with a 2-year rule and Dover with a 5-year age restriction. She highlighted that existing drivers would have a 2-year transition period, meaning they will have until 2028 to comply. It's been confirmed that this will affect 263 aisle drivers, and the policy, as I pointed out earlier, also applies to Uber drivers. Councillor Alan Curry said many amendments have been made to the policy following consultation, and Thanet vehicle age restrictions were less strict than other areas. Now, I want to pass comment on this because there's something that they're not telling you. Now, I get it. And again, I've been doing this a long time. Vehicles have to be correct. They have to be safe. They have to be mechanically compliant. I get it. And not blowing 10 tons of rubbish out the back end. But they keep going on about comparing themselves to other areas. Personally, I don't give a damn about other areas. I just give a damn about this area and what goes on within it. Now, the reason they're concerned very much about other areas, and there's something they're not telling you in this news article, and it's not Kathy's fault. It's not anybody's fault because it's not relevant to the conversation. But in a way, it is important. You've heard me talk about regionalisation, carving England up into different regions. Now, what's actually happening is that regionalisation is effectively happening with different councils. They want to merge smaller councils to make a bigger unitary authorities which look after a bigger area. So what they're looking at is the policy here, the policy in Ashford, the policy in Dover and Deal, the policy in Canterbury, and so on and so on. And then deciding, right, what can we do so when we merge together, it will make our life easier. So what they're actually more concerned with is the results of the merger, which is coming in 2028, rather than the welfare of drivers. Call me wrong, but that's how it comes across. And I don't give a damn what happens in other areas. One of the other arguments is the fact that if we're less strict, then we'll get loads of other drivers trying to apply for licenses here. Say no. Simple. There's just no common sense with any of this. Anyway, let's go back to it. The majority of drivers and operators I've been in touch with are pretty happy with this policy. In the words of a colleague of mine, what a load of bollocks, basically. There's various things in that policy to do with dress code and points and how to apply for this and test for that and various other things, which aren't really a big issue. We just adjust to them. But the main sticking point is the vehicle ages. And I could show you a document that's readily available in public view, which gives you objection, 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 objection. There's pages and pages and pages of it. So that guy that said, I've heard nothing but good things from drivers and operators about this is playing politics with people's livelihoods. And to be honest, it sucks. I wouldn't expect anything less, to be quite honest with you. The Scrutiny Committee recommended the policy go forward for approval with an addition proposed by Councillor Davis that there was a moratorium on the age restrictions until further investigation is carried out. The policy was approved by Cabinet to go to full council without the moratorium and is expected to be agreed by councillors on December the 11th. So that is a week, basically. Mr. Gifford said he believes the policy is unlawful because it constitutes a blanket restriction on a lawful trade without sufficient justification or mitigation. He adds a sudden 7-year age gap with 2-year transition applied to existing roadworthy MOT-compliant vehicles is not a mere condition of licence. It's a de facto exclusion from the trade for drivers unable to afford £20,000 plus replacements. This is precisely the kind of arbitrary barrier condemned in common law. Common law is very important. A lot of common law is based on previous precedent. And one important thing is there was a case where a judge declared that I have a legal right to pursue an honourable trade. Basically, I have a right to work and nobody has the right to stop me. That is in law. And what they're proposing is an arbitrary bar on, drivers being able to work. It's not only this council, to be fair, it's other councils as well, which are trying to force this through. Hence, I'm mentioning the word judicial review. Thanet has 117 hackney carriage drivers, 581 private hire drivers and 61 private hire operators. I just want to clarify at this point, I say taxi driver and cab driver and all of this interchangeably, but I'm a private hire driver and also a private hire operator. To be able to give work out to other drivers, I have to have a private hire operator's licence as well as my own driver's licence. Thanet Council does not currently have a policy in place which brings all hackney carriage and private hire licensing together in one document. The authority says it has a statutory duty to ensure the safety of any taxi or private hire customer and wants to ensure all licensed vehicles are safe, comfortable, insured, and are driven by safe, professional and competent drivers. Now let's break down, I think that was the last... Yeah, that was the last paragraph. Let's break that down, right? The authority says it has a statutory duty to ensure the safety of any taxi or private hire customer. You have a statutory duty to me. You have a statutory duty to the other drivers who pay you a license fee annually for their cars and themselves, as well as the customers. I have a statutory duty to the customers because you hand down to me as an operator terms and conditions which you want me to abide by. And I do every damn time I take a job on, including 5 today, by the way. We want to ensure all licensed vehicles are safe, comfortable, insured, and are driven by safe, professional, and competent drivers. Before you were a driver, you were subjected to a battery of tests to ensure you are professional and competent. Certain things have to be renewed every 3 years. Medicals, DBS checks. Ensure all licensed vehicles are safe and comfortable. Before I can license a vehicle, it has to be visually inspected by the council. That vehicle can be recalled by the council at any time to be visually inspected again, anytime they like. And then, as I said earlier, there's 3 MOTs a year. And the council ask for a copy of your insurance when that is done. They ask for a copy of your insurance when a vehicle is renewed for another period. And they ask for a copy of your insurance if there's any other changes, like if you've changed your vehicle or whatever it happens to be. So they already make sure these things happen. They already make sure these things happen. So what are they doing? What are they doing? There's a very big environmental agenda which drives all this. And there's very much the idea of a large merger with other councils. that drives all this. And by any measure, and I mean any measure, it's unacceptable, because you will cost people businesses. You will cost people their livelihoods. You will drive a lot of hard-working blokes, salt of the earth blokes, to the dole queue. And you will cause a shortage of provision within this area. And as for Uber, they can only operate if they are compliant with your own license conditions that you set. That's what a lot of the public don't realise. So there you go. Broken that down for you as much as I can. Thanks very much for watching. Do all the usual bits and bobs. And as always, I look forward to talking to you soon. Toodaloo.